the message from Rabbi Akiva to give the shiur. I want to mention that this shiur is known as a shiur on Chassidus. So I will start by quoting the Baal Shem HaKadosh, where he says that Machshavte shel Adam, Sham hu Adam. The machshav of a person, that's where he is. Meaning, if I think about Eretz Yisrael, then I am in Eretz Yisrael, at least a small portion. Although this shiur is being held on Zoom, we're all in our own places, but in Machshava we're all together, so Baruch Hashem, we have a shiur together, all of us joining together to share Torah. Let's begin. I want to take an idea, take it in a few steps, and then possibly we'll still have time to share some other ideas. We'll begin like this. We find the pasuk says, "Vayikra Moshe leHoshea ben Nun Yehoshua." Moshe Rabbeinu changes Hoshea ben Nun's name to Yehoshua. Kol Yosheacha me'atzas meraglin. It used to be that his name was Hoshea, and now it's Yehoshua. So what is the pshat in this? What happened? So Moshe Rabbeinu knew that the mission of the meraglin would come to no good. He was especially concerned for the safety and the welfare of his beloved Talmid Yeshua, who would be traveling as part of the infamous group. At this time, Yeshua was still called Hoshea. Moshe Rabbeinu changed his name to Yeshua, adding the letter YUD. Shortly, we're going to delve into what the YUD represents. We'll see a fascinating word that I saw this morning, the Shlach from the Ispitzer. But before we get to that, let's just understand what's going on. So Targum Yonison tells us that when his lashon is kad, you find inside kad chami Moshe am v'sanus of the Hoshea kol Hoshea ben Nun Yeshua. When he saw the anivus of Hoshea ben Nun, he said, "Quick, we got to change his name to Yeshua." What does this mean? Apparently, according to the Targum Yonison ben Azil, his humility put him at a risk. We usually tend to look at anivus as something that's good, and yet over here the anivus puts him at risk to the point where he has to add the extra letter yud, which on a simple level, letter yud is a representative of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, represents Hashem's name. So give him Hashem's name as part of his own name, and therefore he will have the koyach to withstand other eitzes. So what is pshat in this? What is pshat in this Targum Yonison ben Azil? Before we go into the Targum Yonison ben Azil, we'll ask one question as a sidebar. Why is it that Yeshua merits the extra letter added to his name? What happened to Kalev? Why doesn't Kalev get an extra letter added to his name as well? We understand the other meraglim, they wouldn't get it. They weren't interested in getting it. But Kalev went there with the good approach. He wanted good things. If that's the case, he should have got it as well. From the Das Zaken Valtesis, we see something very special. He tells us a klal, a yesod in life, that Kadosh Baruch Hu never puts a person into a job, into a nisayon, unless he has the ability to withstand it, unless he has the ability to be victorious. You never test the person on something that they can't do. We always say you can't walk into a second grade classroom and ask a trigonometry question. That's not a test. The same thing, you don't give a person a test that it's impossible to pass. On the same thing, you also don't go ahead and ask a college class, what is 1 + 1? That's also not a test. So something that can easily be won, that's not a nisayon. So nisayon has to be a challenge on a level where a person stretches themselves, but they have the tools to be able to win. Yeshua ben Nun was lacking something, which we'll see what that was. And as a result of that, Moshe Rabbeinu has to give him the extra tool to be able to be successful. So he adds the extra letter Yud. Kalev did not need this. He was able to pass the test even without the Yud. So therefore, nothing is added to him. That's a simple thing. But for us, we walk out with this. We walk out with the idea that a person, anytime I'm given a test in life, I can pass that test. Otherwise, Hashem would not test me. That's step number one. Now let's come back to this letter Yud. So Yeshua gets the letter Yud. What's the pshat? Because Moshe Rabbeinu sees the anivus and he says that's a bad thing. So there's a well-known word, I believe Rabbi Fran made the word well-known. It comes from the Avnei Shoyam. The Sefer Avnei Shoyam, a beautiful Sefer, he offers the following explanation. And this is all in preparation for the Ispitzer. See, he quotes a Tosefta. The Tosefta is in Shabbos Yud Zayin Daled. The Tosefta tells us the machlokes between Shammai and Hillel, Beishamai and Hillel. What do you do when you have on the table on Shabbos bones? At Summers you have bones. You ate a geschmack at Sholem, but it was from the flanken, and it wasn't just the flanken meat, but it was the flanken with the bones. And now you have bones sitting on the table, and you want to eat dessert. The wife says, listen, I'm not going to bring it out until the table is clear. But bones we know are muksa on Shabbos. What do I do with those bones? So there was machlokes Shammai and Hillel what to do with the bones. Are you allowed to move them on Shabbos or not? Beis Hillel said you're allowed to move them and throw them out in a normal manner. Beis Shammai said since the bones are muksa, the only way you can move them is by taking the entire table. You take the tablecloth and you shake it, menair, you shake it, and that's how you clean it. That was Shammai and Hillel. Came along somebody named Reb Zechariah ben Avkilus, and he said, of machlokes on one hand it's muksa, other says, Hillel says you can just go ahead and move it. Comes Zechariah ben Avkilus, let's make up pshara. Everything's about pshara. We're going to go the middle route. What does he do? He picks up the bones, doesn't bring them into the kitchen, he throws them behind the couch. So, nishtahi, nishtahir. Dr. Tosefta, commenting on this, he says that this compromising attitude of Zechariah ben Avkilus destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. So what does that mean? It's such a machlokes like that where he's trying to make a pshara, it destroys the Beis HaMikdash. The Tosefta is referring to a famous incident which we find in the Gemara in Gittin, Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. The Gemara tells us over there about the time when there was a renegade Yid who went, he denounced the Yidden as rebels to the emperor, to the Roman emperor. He says, I'll bring you a raya. This is after the story comes to Bar everything. So I'll bring you a proof that the Yidden are coming to go ahead and they don't like you and that they're trying to make games. He says, send them a carbon. You know that a goyish carbon is acceptable in the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, send them a carbon to Yerushalayim and have them bring it on the Mizbeach. If they refuse, then you know that they're rebels. This is what he said. So the emperor went and he sent this carbon along with this Yid with a letter of request to bring the carbon to bring this animal as a carbon. What did this Yid do? He was trying to make trouble. He went and he made a little blemish on the animal, which by the eyelid, which is something that for a Yiddish carbon is something that's a problem. We'll see. Chazal, the Chacham went ahead, they rejected the carbon. The Romans attacked, Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. So they went, what happened? He made something that's a mum for one, but not a mum for other. It's a mum that a Yid recognizes as a mum, but a guy would not recognize it as a mum. So now they had a problem. Because if the Roman emperor hears that the Yiddish carbon was not brought, his carbon wasn't brought, he's going to say they're rebelling. The problem is, we can't bring that carbon because it has a mum. So the Gemara says that they weren't sure what to do. They didn't reject this out of hand. What happened was when they saw the slight blemish on the animal, there was a quandary. What's supposed to happen now? Maybe they should bring the carbon anyway, because they don't want to offend him. Says the Zechariah ben Avkilus, no, you can't do that. People are going to say if you do that, that you're allowed to bring a carbon with the mum on the Mizbeach. Okay, they said, okay, maybe a different shot. Came along Chacham and they said, you know what? Let's go ahead and kill this renegade Jew who brought the carbon. Why? Because he's going to go and be Malshin. He'll say Lashon Hara. If we kill him, there's nobody to tell over the tale. We'll be fine. Came along Zechariah and Avkilus says, no, you can't do that. Because if you do that, people are going to say that somebody who brings a blemished carbon, what happens? He's put to death. Chayav Misa. So everything they tried to do, he said, you can't do this, you can't do that. As a result, we know the tragic chain of events that happened. It was set into motion. Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. On that story, Rabbi Yochanan said, the humility, the anivus of Zechariah ben Avkilos destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. So says the Avnei Shem, what do you see from here? That modesty and humility, compromise, peacemaking, these are all wonderful attributes. But in certain circumstances, other qualities are more appropriate. Sometimes a person has to stand up and say, let the chips fall where they'll fall, but in the end of the day, I gotta do what I have to do. I have to stand up and do the right thing. Zechariah ben Avkilos, he took his humility a little bit too far, and as a result of that, the chain of events, we lost the Beis HaMikdash. So says the Avnei Shayim, Targum Yonison, what does it say over there? When Moshe Rabbeinu saw the Anivus, he was scared that Yeshua would compromise with the Meraglim, that he would start giving in. You know, L'man HaSholem, I'm going to go ahead and I'll give in. I don't want to be a rabble rouser. I'll agree to the Meraglim. And what happens in the end? That's the worst thing possible. If Yeshua would have agreed to the Meraglim, came along Moshe Rabbeinu, who has letter Yud, to give him the chizik that was necessary. This is the first idea. But let's take this a step deeper. Why letter Yud? So Yud represents Hashem. I understand that. But what is it about Yud? What was he adding to him? What was this koyach? There are many letters that represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So al pi Chassidus, al pi Kabbalah, what is this letter Yud that he's doing? I'm going to read the words of the Meshilach. Hold 1 second, please. Okay, I had it open. Here we go. He says, Hine ois Yud roimez, and I'm telling you before, and there's a very, very deep idea. It says, ois Yud roimez letemimus. He says, the letter Yud hints to temimus. Simplicity, wholesomeness, sincerity, yashrus, directness, transparency. That's all in the ois Yud, all in the letter Yud. It's a tiny letter. It doesn't blow itself out of proportion, like chametz versus matzah. It's just a small, little, simple idea. There's nothing more than that. That's the letter Yud. We just had this in Daf Yomi. We know that all about the letters of the Aleph base. That's what Daf Yomi is busy with now. Masechah Shabbos. So letter Yud, what do we know about the letter Yud? When a sofer starts to write an ois, he always begins on the top corner with the letter Yud. That's how he works, and he draws out from there the entire letter. It always begins with the Yud, the Kutzah Shel Yud. What does that teach me? It teaches me that it's not only, that hints to the idea that not only is it simplicity, but it's also the essence of every single letter is the letter Yud, drawing down into the entire letter. So therefore, the letter Yud is a shirish. It's the root of everything. It's the shirish that connects to everything even beyond. So you see something in front of you, you will always see a letter Yud there. So now why was Yud added to Yeshua? So now he reads as follows. Hine ois Yud roimez letemimus. It hints to temimus. Kihi nekuda ketan. It's a small pintel, a small dot. Val yedei zeh hoisef le hayud. Because of this, he adds the Yud. Now we're going to stop for a second. If we would unmute, if we'd be together at a shiur, and we would say, so why are we adding the letter Yud to Yeshua? So we understand that there was a negative report that was about to happen. This is, I believe, the most simple answer, especially what we just spoke about, that the Yud is Temimus. So I would say, why is Yud being added? Well, the Meraglim were about to get extremely complicated. They were about to start looking at Eretz Yisrael through the lens of pessimism. So Yeshua gets the letter Yud. Keep it simple. Don't get complicated. Keep it simple. Simplistic emunah. Pashat emunah like a child. A child he's not all these different dimensions. You tell him something, the Eibush just said it, I do it. End of story. All the cheshbainis and everything. Of declared dimension. When a person has Pashtus, or as they used to say, in Europe and Russia, they used to call them a prostayid. A prostak means the most simple form of a Jew. I believe because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I ask no questions. I don't think. I don't start going into it. So that is the simple answer over here, that the Meraglim are going to come at you with all these different tainas this way and that way, and strong, valid questions. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Yeshua, keep it simple. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told us to do on a mission, we do it, end of story, no questions asked. That's the most simple answer. But let's look at a much broader spectrum, and no clue, and I have no clue how the Ispitzer pulls this out from this Parsha. So watch an incredible idea. Ki issa b'gemor. He quotes the Gemara in Kedushin, a famous Gemara, well-known Daf Nun Ches Amud Beis. Ha'im l'chaber tzeh v'kadesh li isha. The Gemara says as follows. We know there's a halacha, shluchai shel adam k'maiseh. What does that mean? Simple level, that means that there's a din called agency, called shlichus. I can go ahead and tell somebody, do this for me, be my shliach for it, and he can do it. Go ahead and acquire this for me. I give him the right, he acts as my shliach, he can do it. The same way, you can also go ahead and say, listen, there's a woman in Atlanta, I'd like to marry her. Please go ahead and be mekadesh her for me, betroth her for me. And the halacha is it's going to work. I don't know what a marriage like that will look like. But that is the halacha, it works. So now let's think for a second. Says the Gemara. A person tells his wife, go and be mekadesh. A person tells his shliach, he tells his friend, go and be mekadesh a woman for me. And the guy pulled the fast one. V'halach, he went there. He saw the woman, he says, not bad. Why am I doing him a favor? I'm also a single guy. I'll go ahead and I'll be mekadesh her for myself, and maybe she'll be happy. I'll slip myself in there, and good. But what do I have to, think of yourself first. Charity starts in the home. He says, perfect, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to be mekadesh her for myself. What's the halach in such a case? So the Gemara, v'holach v'kitchel atzmoi mekudeshes l'sheni. The Gemara says it works. The shliach who went to be mekadesh for his friend and in the end decided to keep her for himself, it works. He himself ends up with her, not the first guy. But, says the Gemara, one extra comment. The Gemara says, El shenag by minig ramos. You should know you're a cheat. You're worthless. You're a cheat. Yes, it worked out. You married the woman, but you're a cheat. So that's the Gemara. So this is called shaykhis b'teirigal. There's no shaykhis to what we're talking about over here. Zogt the Ispitzer, incredible. V'chein hoya nira gam kan b'Yeshua. The story of Yeshua and Moshe Rabbeinu and Klal Yisrael, this was this story. So it seems. Ki Moshe shalach oisei l'sur es Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Yeshua, I need you to do a shlichus for me. Go check out Eretz Yisrael. He says, okay. Who was he checking it for? For himself? No, he was checking it for Moshe. That's what Moshe asked. Did Moshe end up going into Eretz Yisrael? No. Who did? Yeshua. So what comes out over here is incredible. It comes that he went there for Moshe Rabbeinu. In the end, he steals the bride. He steals the kala. He steals Eretz Yisrael for himself. He says, "Gam kan b'Yeshua ki Moshe shalach Yisrael l'suras Eretz Yisrael u'lebesoif nistayim hadavar." In the end, it comes out. The conclusion was Shala Atzmai Torah. He ended up.
They all did it. Reb Mordechai, they all did it. Not just Yeshua. All the Meraglim were supposed to go check it out for Moshe, and they ended up taking it to. Well, the Meraglim didn't get in, but Kalev did.
So first of all, that's the answer. That's right there, the answer. The other ones never made it. So who ended up doing it for himself? From all
Yeshua
of them.
and Kalev.
Exactly. First of all, but Yeshua is the one who led them in. So if you want to know who's the leader who's going to lead Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, that's Yeshua. So Yeshua goes there for Moshe, but Yeshua is the one who ends up in there on his own. That's the first thing. The second thing is, Moshe never sent the other ones. Moshe sent Yeshua. They all asked to go. We'll come to that shortly. They all asked if they can go. But what does Rashi say? Shlach, lecha, l'daitcha, for yourself. I mean, this was Moshe. So the other shluchim weren't for Moshe. Hashem was only maskim. Hashem only agreed that Moshe can send people if it would be l'daitcha, based on the das of Moshe. They didn't go on his das. They went on their own das.
So take it then a step further. So back up for a second. Sorry to interrupt. So back up.
No,
Hashem's Moshe also is a shliach for the Rebbeinu Shloim, but it's in reverse because Moshe then is, in a sense, being Mekadesh the Isha for himself. He also had a shlichus to do. He had to do the Rebbeinu Shalom's Ratzon. He ended up doing his own Ratzon instead. Isn't that the same thing?
No.
Turnabout is fair play.
No, take a look for a second. A father has a son who needs to get married. The father says, there's a good girl for you over there in Atlanta. Same case. When the son goes there to Atlanta to date the girl and subsequently gets married, did he steal her from his father? No. The father sent him to go ahead and realize the dream, to marry her. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, you can go to Eretz Yisrael for yourself. Yeshua is the shliach of Moshe, right? So imagine, my father says go to Atlanta, and I can't make it there because I'm scared I'm going to have to quarantine when I come back into Canada. So I sent somebody in Atlanta, I called a friend of mine, I say, Yankel, this girl over there, East 7th Street, go ahead and be Mekadesh her for me. So this is my father to me to the next person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe to Yeshua. Now Yeshua walks off with her on his own. He stole her. He stole Eretz Yisrael. This has nothing to do with the other Meraglim. We're definitely not shluchim. Okay, I think we're on the same page now. So what comes out over here is that Yeshua, by going into Eretz Yisrael, by going into Eretz Yisrael, what's happening is he is the one who's taking her. That's what it seems. So he says, I'm just reading again from inside. In this time, he was doing it for himself. It would appear that his going to Eretz Yisrael was not bitmimus. Yeshua knew this Gemara. Yeshua knows this Gemara in Kiddushin Numches. Yeshua, by going there and ending up with Eretz Yisrael, it's very clear that this is not bitmimus. L'chein, therefore, Haisiv le'ois Yud. Came along Moshe Rabbeinu and he says, no. I'm going to add the letter Yud. What's the letter Yud? Letter Yud refers to Tmimus. And not only that, but the letter Yud also refers to the Shoirish of all. That tells me that no matter what you see at the end, go back to the Shoirish. And the Shoirish is Tmimus. He understands that the beginning of everything, the beginning of every letter, no matter what the letter can end up with the letter Taf, can end up with the letter Shin, can end up with an Aleph. But the beginning of every letter starts off with that Yud, and that's the Tmimus. To understand that no matter what you see at the end, realize that Yeshua started with Tmimus. It had nothing to do with him ending up in Eretz Yisrael. It was not Ramoyed at all. Rather, it was Tmimus. So continuing in full circle, he comes back to this Targum Yenis ben Azil. B'zeh shetargum Yenis ben Azil, v'kadchami Moshe an v'nesunusa de Yeshua. It's the colleague because he saw in Yeshua something he didn't see in anyone else. In Yeshua, he saw the anivus, he saw the pashtus, he saw the simplicity of the tmimus. Because he sees that in Yeshua, now he says, he's the one that I can trust him. I can entrust him on a mission. He's not going to go with his own thoughts in mind. He's going to go as a proper shliach. The fact that he ends up with it, that was HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon. This is a beautiful machshava from the Holy Ispitzer. So, I'm not sure what time we have until, but I'd like to go further and share another idea over here.
Normally it would be hockey playoffs. There would always be overtime. So go ahead.
We started very late because we were waiting for the host.
I don't want to keep it. Go ahead.
Okay. So we find in the story about the Meraglim, we find something interesting. There was all the slandering of Eretz Yisrael. There was inciting of Klal Yisrael against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And because of the Lashon Hara, Klal Yisrael was consigned to the sorry fate of wandering in the Midbar. 40 years, they would end up, that door would die away. They would end up dying. They would not make it in except for calling Yeshua. What's interesting is, why did they get this merit to go in? Because they refused to collude with the other Meraglim. Instead, they chose to tell the emes. It would seem that Kalev and Yeshua were called equals in the fact that they abstained, they stayed away from the Meraglim, they would not join them. But Lamaisa, if you look in the Psukim, you see very clearly that Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't see it that way. And there was something special about Kalev that Yeshua did not have. So before we spoke about Yeshua, now I wanted to switch to Kalev. Kadosh Baruch Hu openly expresses the Chavivas towards Kalev. We know that he ends up getting the name Avdi. Who else has the name Avdi? It's very, very rare. Moshe Rabbeinu has the name Avdi. Yismach Moshe Manas Chalka Ki Eved Nemon Karasaloi. He's called an Eved Nemon. And Kalev also has this name Eved. Ekev Hoyseruach Acheres Imoy. Because Baruch Hu talks about this Eved Kalev. What was so special about him? Ekev Hoyseruach Acheres Imoy. Because he was of Ruach Acheres, a different spirit. What did he do? He followed HaKadosh Baruch Hu wholeheartedly, B'tmimus. Now, what does it mean? Ekev Hoyseruach Acheres Imoy. So the Rechaim HaKadosh tells us over here that Kalev had a problem. His problem was he had a terrible Yetzer Hara. And his Yetzer Hara kept saying, join the Meraglim, you know you can do it. And you're a representative, and they're going to do who knows what to you if you don't listen. But he refuses to. He goes against his Yetzer Hara. So Ekev Hoyseruach Acheres, even though he had a different Ruach telling him to go ahead and listen to the Meraglim, but still in all, he emerges victorious. He makes the right decision. His emunah is intact, despite the Nisayon that he faced. So Ekev Hoyseruach Acheres means there was something pushing him one way, and still he merits to be, or he manages to be victorious. Yeshua, on the other hand, he didn't have the Yetzer Hara to join. He was never part of the clan, part of the Chevra. Yeshua was on his own world. He was a Talmud of Moshe. He went there, everybody knew he's Moshe Rabbeinu's person. He would never say a peep. Kalev, in fact, many understand that Kalev was not even a Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's why Moshe couldn't give him a bracha. Chaim Shmulevitz says this. He writes that Moshe Rabbeinu had a Talmud named Yeshua, so he gave him a name change and a bracha. Kalev doesn't get it. This is the question we started off with. Kalev doesn't get it. Why? As he wasn't the Talmud. So yeah, you get a bracha. It's very nice. You go to a Gadol, you get a bracha. People run around all day long getting brachas from Gedolim. But when you have a shaykhis to that Gadol, the bracha is worth a lot more. So Kalev didn't have it. So Rashi tells us a different pshat in Ekev Hoyseruach Acheres. He tells us that he had two ruchos inside of him. One was his mouth, and one was his heart. With his mouth, he spoke one way, but piv v'liba ein shavim. His heart was not with his mouth. He would tell the Meraglim, "I'm with you. I'm one of you guys. Don't worry. I'll add my vote." But Lemais in his heart, he maintained an independent perspective. He was free from the poison of the Meraglim, and he aligned with Moshe Rabbeinu and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Outwardly, he acted like the Meraglim, and this gave him credibility that he needed later on. When Klal Yisrael was erupting into an Eretz Yisrael, they were going crazy over there. The Hafganot were busy full time. Comes along Kalev, Vayas Kalev Asa'am. He manages to hush everybody because they thought he was going to say what they wanted to hear. But at that moment, a second later, he goes ahead and he says, "Nope." He says, was this the only thing that Ben Amram did? And he was able to quiet everybody. So he gets tremendous praise that he was able to quiet everybody down. One question over here, huge question. What was so special about what he did? What did he, you look at a major thing. Okay, good. He manages to hush everybody. He presses the button. How long did that button last for that he quieted everybody? Look at the psukim right afterwards. Kalev accomplished absolutely nothing. Seems that way. He hushes Klal Yisrael, and a couple psukim later, he's shouted down by the other Meraglim. Gans Klal Yisrael wanted nothing to do other than to stone Yeshua and Kalev. This was a second later. But Yas Kalev, I saw him. He quiets them down. A second later, they're all yelling again. What did he accomplish? So the Baalei Mussar says something incredible over here. And this is, it's a Yesod. They explain that in reality, Kalev accomplished a lot. If you take a pot We know that there's Kli Rishon, there's Mevashel, Kli Sheni Ein Mevashel. What does that mean? What does it mean, Kli Sheni Ein Mevashel? That means when you take something from one cup and you put it into another, one pot into another pot, at that point already it loses its heat. At the moment when all the hysteria was breaking loose, everybody was yelling. And the eruption against HaKadosh Baruch Hu was strong, so strong. At that second, what happened? Kalev stops everybody. He manages to shift it. That pause slows everything down. It shifts from a Kli Rishon to a Kli Sheni. Yes, afterwards it started up again, but there was already that pause. It was already not straight. It's like when there's that Benes Manim, and then you try and get the Bacher. You try and get everyone to start working again. After that vacation, you go back to the office, and the productivity is not the same level until finally it ramps up. It takes time. Vayas Kol V'Sam, he manages to stop them. That when they came back and ultimately yelled at HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it wasn't as strong and as fierce as it would have been otherwise. And this is an incredible idea because we all manage to lose it at different times. But if a person just stops, takes a deep breath, and then they say what they need to say, it's a completely different outcome. What ends up being said is being said from a Kli Sheni, not a Kli Rishon. And yes, things end up being said. Things end up getting said. And sometimes we regret. But how much worse would it be if a person wouldn't stop for that second? Perhaps when we stop for a second, if something needs to be said, chips need to fall where they fall, but at least we figure out in that second how to say it. And it's not damaging. We find the exact same thing, says the Das again in Baal Tosfos. He writes that, this is Das again in Baal Tosfos, I love this one. He says that the Zakanim came to Bilam. They were looking, trying to understand. They were trying to speak to Bilam, can you curse Klal Yisrael? What happened? Yisrael cursed them. He says, but I need the night. Let me sleep overnight, and in the morning, we don't find anything about the Zakanim anymore. They're gone. What happened to them? But the Zakanim, it's in Perek Chav Beis, Pasuk Ches, he says, what happened to the Zakanim? Where did they go? The Ziknei Midyan. So you know what he says? He says they left. They woke up in the morning and they packed off. During the nighttime, they said, we're Meshuggah, we're gonna start cursing Klal Yisrael, Kadosh Baruch Hu's Kindlach. They had that time to relax, to cool down a little bit. I need time to figure it out, whether I can do this, I can't do this. And the second time when they came back, they said Meshuggah. But why does that happen? Why did they have the ability to walk off? Because they had a moment to stop and think. This is it's an idea that it's the power of a hafsaka. Anytime a person's in the middle of something, they say the same thing by Pinchas. You find the end of Parshas Balak. The story of Pinchas. He goes and he kills Zimri. And then the next Parsha is called Parshas Pinchas. And what's the pshat? Why isn't that part of the same Parsha? Rav Shach Zechron Baruch used to say, and Samarov said the same thing, that there's a hefsek between the story of what happened and Pinchas the person. Why? Because he did take a break. He didn't just go ahead as an angry person killing. He stopped for a moment. He thought about what he was going to do, and then he did it. And that is the power of hafsaka. That's something that's incredible. That it's a lesson that Kali was teaching us. It should help us. We should be zeichet to be aware that in the heat of a moment, sometimes we end up doing things that cause us to regret. We should be zeichet to utilize the power of Kali. What is it to cool down the heat, to make something that it's reisachas while it's boiling, while it's bubbling, change it from a kli rishon to a kli sheni. Between that and the tmimus of Yeshua, that brings us back to the shiur of everything. Person never loses out by any of these things. We never lose out. If anything, Yeshua was the one who ends up taking in. And he wasn't the gun. If he didn't go ahead b'derech ramois, he did it b'derech pshitas, he did it with tamimus. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Thank you, everybody. Good Shabbos.
Thank you. Reb Mordechai, does the same thing apply also when you want to do a mitzvah? Should you pause?
Thank you.
Or then you jump? How do you know?
Come again?
Should a person pause as well before wanting to do a mitzvah and take a chance that it may become a cliche? I want to go. I'm going to get up.
You bist a chassid, no? You're a chassid. I'm the chana for the mitzvah. The hachana for the mitzvah is the mitzvah itself, no?
That's right.
So,
Right, don't miss it.
You're right, but the hachana for the mitzvahs is part of that. Al tachmitzana, but if you still go and make the hachana.
Right. Yeshua, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi
Yes.
Levine. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you need a recording of it, I'll send you the link when it's ready. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeshua, thank you. Enjoy. Have a good Shabbos, a good Chodesh.
Good Shabbos, good Chodesh, Kol Tov. All the best.
Akiva.
Yes, sir.